Hello. Well, here we are going on to part 4 about me leaving the Holiness Church. My life took a lot of changes, for sure. I'm not sure where I left off on page 3. Part 3. I think I had filed for divorce. And I believe Bill was really drinking heavily now, partying, having a great time. So he just kind of didn't realize what was going on. So I contemplate things for a while before doing it. So I thought, I know he'll never leave me alone. Once he really finds out that it's over, that I'm leaving, he's going to come after me no matter where I go, because all through the years, if I tried to just get away from him when things are real bad, he would come after me. He'd find me. He would beg, plead. I just felt like I can't get out of this. How am I going to get away? And I made up my mind, okay, I'm going to start dating. So even before the divorce was final, I was cutting out. I'm not saying this stuff is right, I'm just telling you the truth. So I'm like about 38 years old then. I'm 82 now, so I've learned a lot. I hope, who knows, right? But I remember I lived in Highland, Indiana then. And there was a little paper that used to come to the house, and it advertised Club Rep, it was called, which was a singles club. And it was just in a little brick building. But I remember I cut it out and I put it in my nightstand. And then things must have went on in my life. Things got bad again, and I cut it out and put it in my nightstand. I had to. Things must have went on and got bad again, and I cut it out again. So I had 3. There were 3 ads in there. So that's what I did. And I was now I remember, if any of you have went through the divorce or you had friends and you haven't seen them for a while, you know how you look at them and they're real skinny and you're like, uh-oh, they're having marriage problems. Well, that was me. I wear an 8 now, but I went down to a 5. I didn't even think about eating. The only eating I did was just for survival. So I remember, and I didn't have any nice clothes or anything like this to be dating, but with the best I could find, I got dressed. And I remember it was like a stairway going up into this brick building. And I remember pulling up into the parking lot, and I looked, and outside the stairway against the railings on both sides, there was like 3 men on one side and 3 on the other, just outside talking. And I thought, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here and walk right past these men. And there were all these single guys. And I remember that was very hard for me. I thought, I'm just going to do it, just act confident and just go in. Now, mind you, I was still struggling with the holiness things, and it was almost like I said, I felt like a nun coming out of the convent, whatever they go to. So I remember just going through, I don't know what they were doing. I kind of remember heads turning from what I could see from my peripheral vision. So I went in, and there was a couple of guys approached me right away, and I was thinking, whoa, is that what's out here? I remember thinking that, is that what's out here? Because it's not anybody. One of them was, I better not say the name because who knows. But anyways, yeah. And then I met the founder of the club. This was called Club Rap. I'm sure it's not in existence anymore. I met the founder, and his name was George. Greek guy. Very nice. George and I became good friends. And I would go out with him occasionally. But then in walked up to me this really good-looking guy. Big, good-looking guy. But 6'1", 240 pounds maybe. All muscles. Very handsome, very confident, very talkative, very friendly. So he was really pushing in on me, kind of. And I was thinking, oh, he's cute. But he was wearing a green short sleeve shirt and green jeans. Like, I don't know about these clothes. I was thinking, well, I could always change his clothes. You know, women thinking, right? So I kind of was dating back and forth George and Larry, and there were, I guess, a couple other or so in there guys, but basically it was, most of it was, the biggest part of it was Larry and George. So after a period of time, George was kind of hinting around a little bit about marriage, talking about marriage. And I was thinking, you know, I don't feel that way toward him. I feel like as a friend, but not anyone I'd want to marry. But I didn't want to hurt his feelings, and I wanted to keep him as a friend. And so I told him, I go, well, George, because he was younger than me, not a whole lot, but he was younger than me. And I said, George, you're going to want children, because he didn't have children. I go, and I can't have children anymore at my age. So, and I had medically had something taken care of so that I didn't have other children because of my husband's drinking. I had two children, a boy and a girl. And so, you know, I made that excuse. Well, it ended up, I got a job at a health club in Lansing, Illinois. I lived in Highland, Indiana. And I had not been driving anywhere. As usual, you know, this is my weakness, is this, driving places by myself I don't like. And getting lost. And we didn't have any GPS. I don't know how I figured it out, but I did figure out how to get to this job. So I drove there. I was stressed out, of course. And I remember them asking me if I'd ever had a weight problem. And I said no. And they said, well, if they ask you, the people, the customers, if they ask you if you've had a weight problem, you tell them that you did. And it was a club, it had a lot of, I remember a big line of bicycles, and I don't know what all they did there, because I'm telling you, I started getting sick with like a strep throat, fever. My throat was all swelled up. It felt like I had golf balls in my throat. And I was so tired and feverish. And I just suddenly couldn't. I was at work, and I I had to go into her office, and I go, I'm sorry, but I feel like getting really sick. And she says, well, you can go sit down in the office for a while or something. And I remember I just went in there and I just slid down the wall. I was sitting on the floor with my head on my knees. I was so sick. Well, I ended up going home in bed sick. And Larry, in the meantime, I'm putting there's so much has happened. So much. I got back into smoking. I hadn't smoked in years. Got back into that. Drinking. I don't have any problem with drinking, but you're out with singles and stuff. You're doing it. You're going to dances and all the other stuff. I tried finding a singles club. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Okay. But anyways, Larry came. We were talking, and when I first met him, a lot of the girls at the club were saying to me, he is hung up on his ex-wife. They're divorced, but they never really cut it off, And so they said, you're wasting your time or something like that. And, he just went out with a lot of the girls, but almost like sisters. It was family to him in a way. But anyways, now I'm sick. I'm home in bed, and he's calling me, and he came over. He came up to my room, and I did not sleep with Larry, any of these guys. I did not. Okay. I'm still Holiness, and I still to this day don't believe in doing it. But he came up there, and he sat on the edge of my bed, and he said, he just looked at me and says, I'm going to marry you. And I honestly didn't answer. I just kind of changed the subject. It was like, then he said it again, I'm going to marry you. Well, I think it was 3 times he said, if I remember right, before I even acknowledged what he said. I don't remember saying I would or not. I don't know. But anyways, with being sick, needing money, needing some foundation of some kind in my life, and Larry was very interested in things about the Lord. Very interested and willing to go to church and Bible studies, everything like this. Where a lot of the other men just didn't have any interest. And so, as I said, I couldn't get away from Bill because he was getting drunk and just walking into the house and causing problems. I mean, big problems. Like, took my whole china hutch and knocked it over. Well, he tried to stand up, and he was drunk and ran into the china cabinet. It went on the floor. My mom had just given me this crystal bowl of my grandma's. It was all broken. My camera was broke, dishes. And it so happened that Larry was there when it happened. I don't know. Long story. He had a gun in his boot when he came in. So, to be honest, I was in a position I needed to marry somebody to get out of there. I needed to sell that house. I needed another man in my life. I needed to get away from there where he couldn't bother me anymore. I needed somebody just to take care of me. To be honest, that's how it was. So, we married. And I got him sick. So both of us were sick. We married at his house. So many things I could tell you, but I just don't dare. So we were married for 40 years. And I rented my house out for a while. Okay, I wonder if I should tell you this. Okay. George is no longer with us. So I can tell you the story about George. So Larry and I get married, and I decided to rent out my house in Highland and move into his house in Maryville. He had a real big house, 2-story. I had a tri-level. So I rented out my house to a man that George worked with. George was an electrician. The guy's name was Jim. So Jim and his wife, okay. I haven't got to say their name, but I think they're almost positive they're both gone. In fact, George is dead. The renters are dead. Larry's dead. Here I am. So I used to go over there once a month, drive over, and pick up the rent, visit with them a little bit. So I went over one night, and I sat at the table, and they poured me a cup of coffee, and we're sitting there talking. And then the renter, Jim, said something to me about when George was Barbara. I'm like, what did he just say? I don't know about this world. This is so crazy stuff. And then I go, when he's going on talking, and I go, oh, wait a minute. Back up a minute. When George was Barbara, is that what you said? And he said, and then his wife, Jenny, said, Jim. And he goes, well, I thought she knew. Well, apparently, all this time when I first met George, he had been taking some kind of hormone shots to be a female. Now, George was not a little frail guy. He played football in high school. He was husky. I did think his face was a little smooth. But, some people are like that. So anyways, yeah, I won't go into all that. Anyways, I found out that George at times was Barbara, and that the work where he was working at was going to pay for him to have some kind of sex operation to turn him into a girl. But he first had to be on these hormone treatments. And apparently, from what I'm understanding, that when he met me, he was getting kind of serious and dating me, and he quit taking the hormone treatments. Oh my, so anyways, I just couldn't believe all this. But they said he polished his nails, and he had women's clothes, and he would cross-dress, and he had been married before too. But because of this problem he had, and they divorced. And I'd really liked George. He was so nice. Good thing I didn't marry him. Oh my gosh. We'd be fighting over the nightgowns or something. I don't know. Life was so crazy out there. It's a crazy world, that singles world. It really is. So sometime later, much later, I was at a friend's house visiting her. And she lived in the same area as George. And I don't know how it come up with George. And she says, you dated him? And so he passed away, and somehow or other, she had George's car. And even loaned me George's car because something was wrong with my car, and Larry was in a hospital, and I had to go up there. And I was driving George's car. I'm like, this is getting so crazy. And then they told me how George would put on a dress and mow the grass. You know, I don't know what I would have done if I saw that. If I'd have went by there and saw him in a dress, this big guy, mowing the grass with a dress on, I don't think my little Pentecostal heart could have taken it. I was so sheltered. Oh my goodness. But George passed away. And I just hope he was, I used to talk to him about the Lord. I just hope that, pray that he did accept the Lord. This is getting long, you guys. Am I boring you? Oh my gosh. I'm going to make this thing and go, why did I say all that? Oh, anyway, so Larry and I did marry, and we were married for 40 years. And we sold my house eventually, then we sold his house, and we moved to a house out in the country on 10 acres in Crown Point. And the reason we did that is because Larry loved to build and fly ultralights. And he wanted to have a place to land the ultralight. And so we had 10 acres of grass that he cut. He had a big mower deck on the back of a tractor. And I loved to garden. I was a master gardener. And so that was our big thing. I was a master gardener, and he flew his planes. And a lot of people landed on our backyard with all kind of helicopters and all kind of stuff. But we moved from there to, I won't go into all that. I'll just put it this way. It ended up, Larry got Alzheimer's. And I can't put my finger exactly when it started. But I do remember that we had bought a red Subaru, and we had been all day at the car dealer. You know, if you bought a car, you know how it is. All the stuff you have to do. And this was the next day. And he opened the garage door and he said, "Whose car is that?" And I'm like, "Are you serious?" I said, "That's our car. I don't remember buying any car." And I go, "Larry, don't you remember yesterday? We were at the car dealers all day yesterday." And he didn't remember. And yeah, he was doing a lot of falling. And anyways, he lost his job because he just couldn't function. And then after, Alzheimer's got so bad that that's another video if you wanted to watch it, but I had to end up putting him in an Alzheimer's unit. Actually, his son, Larry's son, he was married before, his son's wife, which would be my daughter-in-law, she's a nurse, and Jenny, nice girl, and Jenny came over and she took me outside. She goes, "Sandy, you can't keep doing this." And then I know my daughter came over and she tried to help for a week or two, and they both like, "Oh my gosh, you can't do this." So, and I was having to put, my son-in-law had to put locks high on the doors and locks in the gates so he wouldn't wander off, and things just got so bad I had to end up putting him into a home. So then the pandemic hit, with COVID, and I came down with COVID. I ended up in the hospital for 3 days. Then I had to have visiting nurses at the house. And on top of that, I had the flu and double pneumonia. Yeah, bad. So he ended up getting COVID while he was in the nursing home. But of course, they were saying everybody had COVID all the time there. I managed to get in there and see him one last time. They didn't want to let me in, but after I went through 3 different nurses, they allowed me to suit up and everything and go in. This is after I got out of the hospital. And yeah, it was bad. So I went in and seen him for one last. After we seen him, he passed that following morning. So then it was like, it was not like, boom, your husband's dead. It's like he died gradually. It was like no longer a husband. It was like a stranger, and just a lot of situations I cannot share. But I start pulling myself together. I went through the crying and I was happy for him though. I was happy for him when he passed because I knew he was getting out of that tormented mind that he had. Okay. So I ended up going on a dating site. And that's another video we could watch. There's no sense me going into that, but ended up kind of going back and forth between these 2 guys, and I knew that I needed to give Mr. Bill, he was one of them, a chance but he was in Tennessee, and I just didn't want to date anybody this far away. And he'd drive all the way from Tennessee, and I had to turn him away. He knew. Mr. Bill saw me, and he knew right away. He was widowed too. He was a widower. His wife passed away from COVID. And both of us were lonely. And so anyways, long story short, Mr. Bill and I got married. And that's been 2 years ago. It'll be 3 years, July 18th. We married 3 years. And I sold my house. I sold my car. I moved to Tennessee. We sold his house. And then we bought a house and had to empty out this big storage where I'd put all my stuff in Tennessee. So we actually moved 3 times in 3 months. He's a year older than me. I was 79 when we got married, and he was 80. And now I'm 82 and he's 83. Our marriage has worked out wonderful. I'm still in Tennessee. I love it here. Don't know what my future's going to hold, as far as we don't know which one of us is going to go. We're at this age, I always say, we're just walking each other home is what we're doing. But life is peaceful. I'll put it that way. All right. That was pretty long. I decided I was not going to do a part 3. Or 4, rather. I've got 3. Until this last minute, I was sitting there, I go, okay. So I know I've missed a lot, and so much. That's just a basic thing about what happened. And of course, I don't smoke anymore, and I don't drink anymore. That was a long time ago. But that all quit after I married Larry, you know. Larry was not a drinker, by the way, because he was married to an alcoholic, so Larry did not drink. And Mr. Bill doesn't drink or smoke. So that's good. Well, I love all of you, and share with me, have any of you ever had a crazy life like I've had? I don't know. And you know what? I never wanted it this way. I'm a homebody. I love to decorate my house. I love to paint. I do oil paintings, and I think I'm going to add that onto this somehow. Yeah, so you can see that too. Yes. And I love to garden. Like to have people over for dinner. Just, I don't know, just simple life, really. Like to read, do my videos for YouTube. And somehow my life just got so messed up all the time. So tell me how your life has been. Have you somehow got yourself into situations like I have? I don't know. But I do have, I have 7 grandchildren. 6 of them are mine. And 1 is a step-grandson that is like my own. That it was from Bill, or not Bill, from Larry. And I have 2, well, 3. One's in heaven, little great. I'll have to do a video on that. Little great-granddaughter, Sterling. She's in heaven. And I have a great-grandson, Ren, and a great-grandson, Evander. And life goes on. Okay, getting long here, you guys. This is one of those long videos that you can get on the treadmill and watch, or just, you know, kind of sit down, relax, and watch, right? I hope I didn't bore you too much. Thanks for watching, you guys. There's not going to be any part. Oh, I shouldn't say it. Maybe there will be a part 5 one day. Okay, goodbye, and I love you.